What's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, some head coaching candidates have been interviewed over this last week, and the interviews are still going on. A bunch of teams have had their head coaching candidacies looking to be filled, and the Colts are no exception. We are going to go ahead and kind of talk about some of the ones that have already interviewed or are on the list to be interviewed. Maybe a couple more that aren't interviewing yet. It's a couple other things, but the first things first for the Indianapolis Colts, the first coach to actually be interviewed for the head coaching vacancy is actually Bubba Ventrone, who is the special teams coordinator. A lot of people were definitely surprised by this one. I think even some people were talking about, why is it that Bubba Ventrone was not considered for the interim head coaching position to begin with? Not sure if it had anything to do with, just the fact that Ursay wanted somebody outside the building. Not 100% sure, but obviously Ventrone's been the coordinator for the last 5 seasons with the Colts, and the special teams units for the Colts always seems to be one of the top units. There's a lot of a leadership quality when it comes to Ventrone holding players accountable. It's one of those situations where Ventrone is very well respected in the building by everyone. Only question I have is, what is he going to actually do as a head coach, right? Because clearly Bubba Ventrone is not going to be, calling plays or things of that nature. It'll be very interesting to say the least on if there's any merit to this one. But of course, I think if there's anyone inside the building that would probably deserve a chance right now, it definitely is Bubba Ventrone, even though I don't know if I would necessarily go that route. But the Colts did interview him on Wednesday. So definitely another option for an inside hire sort of situation. But again, we'll talk about those at a later time, though. The person who actually interviewed just a few hours ago, Ejero Evero, which is the Denver Broncos defensive coordinator. He's actually been a big climber throughout the season. He's only had one year of coordinating experience, though. But even in that, the 2022 defense for the Denver Broncos was very elite. They were 7th overall and tied for 13th in scoring. Again, we can kind of go on a tangent of, why it wasn't better, why it was worse. I don't know. But either way, Ivero is definitely a bright coach and a good defensive coordinator at that. He actually interviewed with the team today. Very interesting to see that one, especially. I know that they threw their hat in there to interview him, request an interview with him, and that one has been done. The big ones are, I don't know when we're going to get this video out. I assume Friday. When this video goes out, the interviews that will be the big ones today or Friday, if this doesn't go out Friday, is Raheem Morris and Ben Johnson. You're starting with Raheem Morris. Raheem Morris is the Rams defensive coordinator. There's a lot when it comes to Raheem Morris. He's been there and he's done that in a lot of different ways. He was the head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 2009 to 2011 and an interim head coach in 2020. He did finish with an overall record of 21-38. In one of these situations, I know a lot of people will say very overrated. You have to understand the circumstances that he was in. He was a much younger coach when he was the head coach of Tampa Bay. There was a much younger guy, and he didn't quite, get everything accomplished that he wanted. He was still inexperienced. And then, like you said, when you're an interim head coach for the Atlanta Falcons over the last few years, it's not going to be a good situation for you. But nevertheless, he's been a celebrated position coach and coordinator, helping lead the Rams to a Super Bowl championship. I think a lot of people are going to try to say that the Rams' lack of success this last year should be a knock on him for some reason, when I definitely don't believe it should be. This last season for the Rams has been a lot of issues. They were decimated with injuries. The offense was not looking good. So, again, this is a defense that, had to face a lot of different things. And I think Raheem Morris definitely is another guy that really commands a locker room really well. And I think that's another thing that's very important. But again, that's another defensive coordinator. But now we can kind of talk a little bit more about the offensive coordinators, which I definitely think is super important. And the other guy who is going to be interviewed on Friday as well. So the Colts are really busy Friday, and some really qualified candidates here. And the other one is Ben Johnson. And apparently, I mean, obviously Ben Johnson, his offense this last year was one of the top offenses in the league. Taking Jared Goff, that DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, that offense, and turning them into a top 3 offense. Honestly, it was the number 1 offense for quite a few different weeks as well. They finished 4th in offense, total offense, 5th in scoring. I mean, you obviously could argue no one squeezed more out of the offense. What they were able to do with the talent that they had, and to make it into as dynamic of an offense as it was, despite the fact that the Lions defense was one of the worst defenses in all of football this year. The fact that they were so elite to the point where they could actually, almost make the playoffs on his back means a lot. And there are a ton of coaches around this league that have tremendous respect for Ben Johnson and believe that he is a prominent superstar head coach in the making. No wonder that he has already been requested to be interviewed by about 4 different teams within the first week of the offseason. So, and I'm sure there will be more coming in from for Johnson. He was one of the first ones that they requested to be interviewed, and he's going to be interviewing on Friday. You can see a lot of fun play designs. That's what I love about Ben Johnson, is Ben Johnson's ability to get creative and how he attacks an offense. He loves going vertical, which is one thing that the Colts definitely need to go into advanced mode when it comes to that next year, and with this new quarterback that we're going to have. And that's why I feel Ben Johnson would be a great addition for that, due to his ability to extend the field and to make things definitely more interesting. Another offensive mind that the Colts are going to be interviewing is Shane Steichen, the Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator. Now, a lot of people felt that this would not necessarily happen because of Nick Sirianni and his feelings towards how they handled the Frank Reich situation. Everyone remembers when Philadelphia beat Indianapolis in Indianapolis this year, and Nick Sirianni was very adamant on, how that was handled by Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard and the organization going forward. But there was a interview requested early in the week, and it has been signed off, and Shane Steichen will be interviewing with the Indianapolis Colts on Saturday. Clearly, either Sirianni or Frank Reich spoke to Steichen and told him, like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you. We believe that you should go out there and you should attempt to see if this is something you would want to do. Because I know a lot of people may not know this, but Steichen actually was the main play caller for the Philly offense this year. Nick Sirianni has even confirmed this, that Nick Sirianni is not the one that's calling the plays most of the time. It's mainly Steichen that's helping figure this out. But clearly, this Philly offense, even though it's added a little bit of talent this year, has definitely been a phenomenal offense. They were number 3 in both total offense and scoring this year. They just show you in a lot of different ways that Philly is a lot more of efficient offense this year than what they have been in years past. So obviously, when you have Nick Sirianni, telling you one of the better offensive minds in football, telling you that Steichen is the one that is mainly calling these plays for you and was able to improve this offense by a long shot, it just goes to show you how valuable Steichen really is. And there's a lot of people after his name right now already. And so those are some of the interviews for coaching candidates that have been scheduled. There are a few that have not been scheduled yet, or even will maybe take place at all. Aaron Glenn was another name that the Colts had thrown into wanting to try to get a name out there for. And he is the Lions defensive coordinator. That interview time has not been determined yet. But if I were the one making the decision here, I would not want to take the chance on Aaron Glenn. A lot of people around the league really respect Aaron Glenn for the mind that he is. But clearly, this Lions defense from this last year was atrocious. It was not a good thing for Aaron Glenn, who's trying to go out and get interviews. It's just not a great look when your unit was the worst unit in football. So definitely a hard pass for me if I was the one helping making the decisions. And then some other things that we need to talk about, and that is one, you have Jeff Saturday, who was the interim head coach. Chris Ballard did confirm in his presser earlier in the week that he will be a candidate. That interview time has not been determined yet. I don't even know if they'll even announce it, but definitely is going to be a candidate. I know most people agree that he most likely is not going to be the prime candidate, especially if Ballard is the one leading this charge. But it is still probably going to happen with, the interview process and whatnot. That's another one. And then, of course, when we talk about Jim Harbaugh still being another thing, there's been a bunch of things going on around Twitter recently that have been talking about. There's like ESPN bullet points and whatnot that state that Harbaugh would be interested in taking the Colts job. Again, don't know the legitimacy of it, but if ESPN's reporting it, then there might be some legitimacy to it. At some point, I know I saw it from a post by Landon Oliver earlier. But clearly, yeah, we've heard the news that, Jim Irsay would love to have Jim Harbaugh back in the building. Again, we don't know if he's even ever going to interview or if he wants to even come back. That is going to just be another issue for another day. We still don't know at this point, but I know that there's a lot of people around that would love to see Jim Harbaugh back in the horseshoe coaching this team if that were to end up happening. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. This is a list of some of the coaching candidates who have already interviewed and people who are about to interview and some people who may not interview but are around the interest of the Indianapolis Colts. Let me know your thoughts on all this list, guys. I want to know who you like out of this list and who you don't like out of this list. If I had to pick, I would definitely say Ben Johnson's my number 1 at this moment. Steichen would be my number 2. Raheem Morris would be my number 3. Evero would be my number 4. And these are just the guys that, are going to interview or have already interviewed. Jim Harbaugh, I would probably end up putting in there right above Raheem Morris. That's about it. So let me know your guys' thoughts on this. Genuinely curious. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Be sure to keep hitting that sub button. Be sure to like. Be sure to subscribe, like I said. Thank you guys so much for all the support. And as always, go Colts.